It's it's sad for me.
What's sad for you?
I was saying I'm looking at our sheet of things that like things on the horizon that we want to get to eventually, and one of the things is Final Fantasy 14 review, which I don't know if we're ever going to be done with it. I don't know if you'll ever
We'll
be
never
done with
be
that game.
so we'll never be done with it, but I could at least get through the Heaven's Word content. Have you gotten through that?
No, I got a little bit of the way into it and I found it really cool, but then I just kind of burned out on the game.
Okay, because I mean, we can't review every raid in Final Fantasy 14, but we can certainly, I think, talk about at least the main story quest in Heaven's Word, plus whatever else.
Let's not artificially limit ourselves. Let's talk about the first coil of Bahamut.
I don't know what that means.
I actually don't know what that means either.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Oh, well, hello. Unexpectedly, there's an audience that I didn't realize was there. Jonathan, I thought it was just you and me talking, but there's a third party that's hearing our voices. Were you aware of this?
No, it kind of felt like a fireside chat, and it's cold enough to need a fireside chat right now.
'Tis true. Truer words have never been spoken. Well, this is, as the introduction and description of this podcast suggests, Game Life Balance U.S., where a couple of adults try to figure out how to play video games and also go to work and get sleep. And I'm Cody Goff, and this is Jonathan Martin. And we figure it's early in the year 2017, which means there's a lot to look ahead at. And also, we never really kind of looked back at 2016, and there are apparently a lot of people start listening to podcasts in December and January. So as a quick little refresh and introduction to any new listeners, I'm a full-time marketer. John is a full-time pharmacist. He has a wife and a kid. I do not. And we both, though, have very limited time to play video games. So over the last year, we didn't play 30 or 40 or 50 games. We're going to kind of give our top like 5 from 2016 because I think I only played 5 games in 2016.
Generally, when we do a top 5, it is because those are the 5 games that we played. And in my experience, that's actually not true for me, but in years past, it has gone that way.
Yeah. So so we're going to go kind of go full gamer in this episode because we're just going to go way into video games. Usually we get into a bit more lifestyle stuff, but for this particular episode, I want to focus a little bit on games, suggest what you could or should buy or play or whatever, including some cheaper games because they came out before 2017, and we'll generally have a good time. We're also going to mention how many hours of each game we've played so you have an idea of how much we did, because reviewers, you never know. Some are like, oh, I played 14 hours of Final Fantasy 12 and I gave it 10 stars when it's like a 300-hour game. We don't do that. Well, sometimes we do, but not always. So, yeah, anything to add, Jonathan?
Yeah, just before we start, I'm looking at these times on here, and I feel like I played way more video games than this, but maybe I didn't. Because I just pulled all these times. So we'll talk about that as we go.
All right, cool. So I guess we'll just
feel inadequate. I feel inadequate looking at your times. They're massive. They're huge. They're huge.
I think a couple of the times are a little skewed for and I didn't actually put for Phantom Breaker. It's actually going to be like 3 hours. So there you go. That should even it out. So we'll do our top 5 games of 2016, plus what lessons we learned about balancing video games with our lifestyles and what we're looking forward to in 2017. And I will let you start with your number 5.
So I'm torn because earlier in the year, around the summertime, if you listen to a couple of our episodes, I talked about this little indie title called Kentucky Route Zero. And if you remember anything about that game, I said it's kind of like this really minimalistic, kind of pixel graphic-y David Lynch style story, if you remember me saying that. And
I also pointed out that it's Route Zero.
Sure, Kentucky Route Zero. It's like Route 66. You don't say get your kicks on Route 66. You say get your kicks on Route 66.
Right, but if our listener wants to check out Kentucky Route Zero, they'll probably type in ROOT because that's how you spell root. Whereas route, you cannot misspell unless you're doing ROUT, which is not as commonly used.
Point is I played the first 4 acts of this game thinking that it was a fully finished game when I bought it. I actually got it on a humble bundle type thing, and I'd heard awesome things about it, so I wanted to play it. Anyway, it's purely story based. There's like no fail states at all in the game, so you can't lose at all in anything. And it's just a game where you kind of frame characters. Like the story moves on, and you just kind of pick what the characters say to each other and kind of how conversations flow. And it's super cool and super interesting. But I don't know if it counts because technically the game is not released yet. I mean, for me it counts because it's a game that I played this year that I really enjoyed, but it wasn't the full game. So I just don't know if I can count it in my games of the year. If I could count it, I feel like I am artificially kind of nixing it myself, but I feel like it gets an honorable mention here because I remember how excited I was to wake up every morning because I'm still doing this where I wake up at 4 a.m. But I was excited to wake up and play the next chapter because it's kind of broken up into acts. And I was super excited to play the next act every single day that I played it. And I even artificially slowed myself down from playing it and would only allow myself to play 1 act a day because I wanted to kind of make it last and extend it out. So it's really cool. And I'm super pumped for Act 5 whenever it comes out.
All right, so Kentucky Route Zero gets the honorable mention. So what were you between that? So what gets you number 5 then?
So my number 5 then officially goes to Gears of War 4, which I haven't had the ability to talk about it yet. I did mention it briefly in another episode. I talked about Horde mode, which really disappointed me because it was kind of the whole reason I bought the game. And I couldn't get a game of it going pretty much ever because people would just keep dropping out.
Multiplayer, yeah, you said was messed up.
Yeah, it was messed up. But the single player was a good enough Gears of War experience. And for some reason, Gears of War is like my shooter. It's like my third-person shooter that for some reason it just sucks me in, whether it be the world or just the feel of the game or whatever. It's a game that I have to play every one of the iterations of the main game of it. And Gears of War 4 is awesome. It is like another Gears game. They change it up pretty significantly by having you fight robots, which are completely different in terms of how they act, how the artificial intelligence works with them compared to the Lambent, which have been like the villains for the first 3 games. So the game still feels like a Gears game while feeling different enough to be justified. So I really liked it. And it is the kind of game that it could be one of those games that was the only game that I played for months if I could consistently get multiplayer matches working in the way that I wanted them to. But they I feel like Gears screwed up a little bit in that the original Horde mode, which again, the reason I bought this game was Horde mode. The original Horde mode was just you and some dudes or ladies facing 50 waves of enemies. That was it. And you could restart if you died, etc. In Gears of War 3, they introduced this mechanic where you can like set up defenses, and it kind of artificially complicated the whole experience of playing Horde mode, and it made it, in my opinion, it made it worse. So I think it's become a little too cumbersome for people that just want to get in and shoot some stuff and get out again. Because in between waves, you have to set up defenses and make sure that things are repaired and blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of takes away some of the get in and gun stuff down that Gears of War had before.
Huh. Cool. So,
but it's still rules.
How much of these games did you play exactly?
This one I put 12 hours into. And I would say 8 of it was probably the main campaign. I probably completed the main campaign in 8. And then 4 was spent playing 2 full games of Horde mode total in my like 8 attempts at trying to get a game going.
Cool. All right. Well, good.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
That was my number 5. What is your number 5?
First, I have to mention an honorable mention. And
is it Final Fantasy 13 too?
You're close. You're a few. It's Final Fantasy 15. And the reason is I'm only 40 hours into it.
That's significant. That's a lot of time.
You think so, but I have so many complicated feelings about this game. Like, I started writing a review and it's over 2,100 words, and I'm about halfway into it. I have so much to say about it and so much to process, and I obtained a lot of new information today that completely changes the experience. So, realistically, it should be in my top 5, but I don't want to name it my number 3 or number 4 game of the year and then next year say it's my game of the year for 2017. That just feels weird. So I'm just going to kind of mention that it's been an overall pretty positive experience, but I have lots of issues and questions about it before I really review it and get into it. But
Final Fantasy 15, you've been tweeting out some stuff over the past couple of days with some kind of, whether they be cutscenes, I don't know what they are. They're advertisements for the game or for noodles or something. So there's something happening in the game that you're playing that is basically an advertisement from what I can tell. Is that right?
There is a feature on the PS4 if you hit share and it records it. You can share video of the previous, I think, up to 15 minutes of video from whatever game you're playing.
Okay.
It's weird because the first time I did it, it only let me post 30 seconds. But then the second time I did it, it was like, oh, here's a 15-minute chunk. And I was like, no, I just want the last like minute. But and I know Xbox has this too. If you say something like Xbox record or something, it'll record the last X minutes of gameplay. So there is a side quest in Final Fantasy 15 that is literally a commercial for cup noodles, which is a Japanese product.
Yes.
And the side quest is literally an ad.
That's kind of what it felt like. Okay, good.
Yeah. So if you follow me on Twitter at producer Cody, and then search for the hashtag FFXV for Final Fantasy 15, I have been sharing a lot of photos from the game and screenshots with, I think, hilarious captions. I may put them all in a blog post or something later, but yeah, I'm really sharing my experience as much as possible.
Okay, so that's honorable mention. Final Fantasy 15 is an honorable mention. It's a weird game, but it's good, but it's weird.
Yeah, super weird. Anyway, my number 5 is actually, and this should give you an idea of how much I have to stretch to get my top 5. My number 5 is Lara Croft Go, which is a puzzle game for iOS.
It doesn't count.
It's maybe Android.
Game. No, mobile games don't count. They're not actual games.
Definitely counts. So
Satan made them on the 4th day, along with the he made the cold ground
Coldplay.
You put Coldplay. Yeah, that's Satan made Coldplay on the 4th day. That's right. You two.
Did he do it when he was on the? Did he do it when he was on the clocks?
I don't understand. I don't understand the reference. I don't understand.
On the clocks.
Okay, so
you got it.
What's your? I had it from the beginning. What's your real number 5?
No, it's Lara Croft Go. Shut up! I hate you. I played. Look. Here's why, and actually, this is a very significant reason why. There are very few mobile games I have found that you can play these days without an internet connection. Freaking most match 3 games you need an internet connection for. Hearthstone, you need an internet connection even for the single player stuff.
Yeah, as an aside, actually, as an aside, there's some controversy over Super Mario Run right now because it requires an internet connection, and they came out and said, Nintendo came out and said that the only reason why it requires an internet connection is because of piracy concerns. That's it. There's no gameplay feature that requires it, so it's just for piracy.
Yeah, and it's super annoying. Well, I look at my phone, Final Fantasy Record Keeper, Mobius Final Fantasy, WWE Supercard, if you're into that, I believe Oz Kingdom, the stupid Wizard of Oz spinoff that I haven't really played. The game, I mean, very few games allow you to actually play them without an internet connection, even if there are no features that you use.
Sure.
So it's super annoying. So I was on a flight I flew to Mexico City for work in November 2016. And on the flights to and from, I just wanted a game I could play without paying $10 for the in-flight Wi-Fi, because it's not that long of a flight from Chicago. And yes, you can play the Final Fantasy games on mobile, but I am not convinced those will be a good experience on my phone. Maybe they will be, but whatever.
I haven't played them on phones, but on tablets, they're fine.
And on tablets, I would imagine they're fine because you've got a big screen, whatever. I don't know. So I got Lara Croft Go, which is a Square-Enix game. It's a Tomb Raider licensed puzzle game, and it's super fun. It's really fun. You can kind of blaze through it. There's little Easter eggs you can find in every level. The idea is basically you move her to the exit, and you do it with swiping motions. You can swipe her in any direction on this map, and then it's kind of turn-based, I guess, so things aren't really moving in real time. But whenever you swipe...
They move when you move.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. And it's a fun puzzle game, and there were a couple spots. I'm probably 3/4 of the way through the game. You could probably beat it in 5 or 6 hours, including getting everything. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. You can unlock some outfits. There's a couple unlockable things, and there's a lot of items to find. And if you are connected to the internet and you want to buy hints, you can pay for hints, which would be completely idiotic because guides exist. Google them.
Also, it's a puzzle game. So generally, I think like the point of puzzle games generally is to kind of figure them out.
Yeah, I agree. But it was a very satisfying experience, and I did have to pay a few bucks for it, but it obviously didn't break the bank. It was $3, $4, or $5 maybe, and it was fun. So highly recommend Lara Croft Go if you're looking for a game that you can play without an internet connection. It is on iOS, and I will tell you in a couple seconds if it is on Android.
Well, I think that is an underrated point that you make, and I'll just reiterate it one more time about the idea of playing it offline, because like I do play mobile games quite a bit. I'm checking in with like that Star Wars game all day, that kind of thing. But when I go like on a vacation, there is no way for me to play that on the airplane. And if I'm leaving the country or something where there's not going to be Wi-Fi, like my wife and I visited Mexico not relatively recently, we didn't have internet at our resort without paying for it, which we didn't. And I couldn't play it there because we didn't have Wi-Fi there, So I think that's an underrated point.
Yeah. And I just checked on the Android App Store, on the Google Play Store. It is $1. So really worth it.
That seems worth it.
Yeah, super worth it. Square-Enix also has a game called Hitman Go, which I'm assuming is somewhat similar, but uses the Hitman license. Also $1. Have not played it, but if it's nearly as good as Lara Croft Go, I would highly recommend it. So there's my number 5.
I think that they're going to be coming out with more Go games as well, just more light, because they've got more licenses they can work with. I think there's a Deus Ex Go as well.
Oh,
yeah.
They should get the Pokemon license.
Oh, Pokemon Go?
They could call it Pokemon Go.
It'd have to be something different. I think Pokemon Go's take it. It'd have to be Pokemon Go.
Oh, all right. Well,
and then it fits right in with Final Fantasy.
So they need to get the Pokemon Go license so they can release Pokemon Go.
Go, exactly. And again, it fits right in with the Final Fantasy theme.
Cool.
My number 4 is a game that I talked about a long, long time ago. I think it was the start of the year, February, I think. And it was Darkest Dungeon. Which
was it?
Yeah,
a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. It was the start of the year. And so that's when Darkest Dungeon had its official release. So Darkest Dungeon was a game that was in early access for a long time. And then it finally got a full release. It was either January or February. And that was right around the time when I talked about it too. And it was a game that I fell in. I had a dramatic love affair with it for like a week and a half. It was the kind of game where it was the only game I was playing in the mornings when I was waking up. if I had any gaming time at night, that was the only game I was playing. There were some nights where I stayed up late to play it, because it just kind of had me totally absorbed. It was basically this. It's kind of like a roguelike dungeon crawler puzzle game where you create a party of adventurers and you go through a dungeon trying to collect treasure to come back to town to kind of make your town better, which then gives you access to better goods. All the while your characters are progressing and you can have a stable of like 12 different characters to pull from, and you bring 4 into the dungeon each time you go in. But the thing that really makes it is the art style and the narrator that's involved in it, just kind of the whole aesthetic of it, because it takes place basically there's your uncle went crazy and opened a gate to hell or something in his mansion, and you go to investigate that, and it's you are like the eye in the sky for what's going on, and you're recruiting the people that you are recruiting to go in there are all sorts of just horrible people. So like they're like the scum of society, and they're the ones that you're recruiting to go in here. And as you're going through the dungeon and going through each time, your characters can gain ailments that stick with them that can make them worse, or better, or they can become panicked, and it can kind of change the strategy completely in the dungeon. The thing that's so great about it is that it's all about team building. So even there's like 12 different character classes or like 10 different character classes, and even within each character class there's about 8 different abilities of which you can pick 4. So the ability, and each of these abilities can only be used in certain positions in the dungeon. So there
like
are 4,
missionary.
yeah, that's cowboy, cowgirl, cow.
Reverse cowgirl.
Okay, reverse. Yeah. So you know, there's like the leader of the party, this person that's in second, the person that's in third, and then the person in the rear. And you know, if you have this one ability, it maybe can only be used if that character's in the rear position. Regardless, what that means is that there's a huge number of ways to build each individual character, and that then extrapolates into a huge number of party configurations. So it's incredibly customizable to go into the dungeon, and you kind of have to build up multiple characters and multiple parties, because there are some parts of the dungeon where like certain characters are much better than others, and you kind of need to use them in order to progress. It's really cool. The thing that it would have been even higher on this list, but midway through the game, there are some decisions that they made with it that make it grindy in a not fun way. One example of that is when your heroes, there are basically 3 tiers of this dungeon, like lower tier, mid tier, and high tier, right? Of each of these dungeons that you're going through. And when your character progresses past the first tier, they are no longer willing, that one character is no longer willing to run the lower tiers because they say it is beneath them. And so if too many characters get promoted, we'll call it, then if you have to progress lower level characters, you can't do it quickly. You have to basically recruit a bunch of lower level characters then to put them all in together, because the higher level characters won't go into the dungeon with them. So it's like I said, it was kind of I understand why they did it. Like in theory, it makes sense because you want to kind of prevent the player from cheesing the lower level dungeons and quickly bringing a lower level character kind of up to speed. But in practicality, what ends up happening is that your characters progress and you never want to go back to work on lower characters again. And then if one of your mid-tier characters or your high-tier characters dies, they can die, and it's a permanent state, so they don't come
Oh
back,
no.
and they don't come back again. And the only choice you have then is to bring characters up from the lower levels to get to the mid and high tiers again. So you can lose a significant amount of progress that you then have to kind of grind back up again. And that's the only reason why I wouldn't be higher, because the game itself is great. It feels like a puzzle game in each dungeon that you're in there, because it's all turn-based, so you don't have to think, like you don't have to like make any kind of split-second decisions. It's just like, here's the encounter that you're fighting, what do I want to do here? What do I want to chance here? That kind of thing.
So strategic. Did you finish the game?
No, it got, like I said, it got too grindy. I got midway into the second tier of dungeons, and I kind of knew where the game was going, and I kind of didn't need to see any further.
And you played 23 hours of this game, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of a lot for the first tier.
Right. And since February, they have patched it. They've included a couple of new character classes, which the game didn't necessarily need, but it's cool. They added more of those. And they did do something with the leveling slope of that middle tier and lower tier to make it so that characters progressed a little faster as the game goes on. So I think that they tried to make good on that and fix it. But I haven't had a desire to go back to the game yet. Like I can see myself going back and playing it again because the game was cool. I just haven't had again that desire quite yet.
Got it. Cool. Darkest Dungeon. Number 4. Are you sure you weren't just bad at it?
I was really good. I was very good at it. I was extremely good at it. I was unbelievable. I could have been bad at it.
Okay.
I also, you can go back and listen to that episode from February or March, even. I can't remember when it was, but it was actually an episode we did with our friend from Russia, John Simon, because he played the game as well, and we were able to kind of talk about what we really liked and what frustrated us about the game as the game went on. So it's worth a listen to. It's really good.
Right. And occasionally when we have a third guest, there's the audio setup is a little less than ideal for our podcast. So if the audio quality is a little lower, just expect that. But I usually do some post-production to make it sound good. And in the description of this episode on either GameLifeBalance.us or on our YouTube channel, I'm going to be posting links to full episode reviews of all the games we're talking about today, except for the next one that I'm about to talk about, because I've never talked about it before.
If we had them, because I think some of them we didn't have. Yes.
Right, including the next one, which is my number 4, which I've not talked about on the podcast, but it's called Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds. Have you heard of this?
This sounds like a game that you played at Bit Bash.
No, it's not actually.
It sounds like that though.
It does. I've only played about 3 hours of it, but it is a beat 'em up that is on Steam, and I played it with Russian Jon actually, and his name is Russian Jon, not Russian Jon actually. I played it with Russian Jon, actually, just to clarify. But
this is a dying genre. I mean, beat 'em ups don't really exist much anymore.
Yeah, and yet it actually has a 9 out of 10 on Steam, so it's pretty highly rated by the people there, which is kind of funny because it only has a 64% on Metacritic and a 5 out of 10 on IGN.com. But whatever, users like it, and beat 'em ups don't need a lot to be good. This one features, I don't remember a lot about this game, to be perfectly honest, so I won't be able to give you a lot of details. But if you're looking for a fun local co-op beat 'em up to play with friends, this is a great game. It's $12 on Steam regularly, but get it on sale. Like, do not pay full price for it. And the thing about it is, and I'm triple checking my sources to make sure. Oh no, this isn't the one. There's a game that John brought over one time that was the most aesthetically hideous game I've ever played in my life. That was a scrolling shooter. I don't even remember the name. I'll try and get that for a future episode. But this is just your typical beat 'em up. You play these cutesy anime girls that shriek a lot and have fun moves. Not super long. There's a lot of different difficulty levels, and as you progress through the game, you unlock lots of different powers and special moves, which is always cool to have in a game, a la Castle Crashers or Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Sure.
And it's just a fun beat 'em up. They came out in 2013. It's a spin-off of the fighting game Phantom Breaker, which I've never played or heard of, and I just recommend it. So Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds, again, 3 hours. We beat it at least once in 3 hours, so not a huge amount of time needed to master this game, hence why I definitely recommend getting it on sale. But as a fan of the beat 'em up genre, where you're just running to the right and beating things up, is a pretty solid choice.
I imagine you occasionally ran left.
Hard to say.
Yeah, you don't even remember anything about the game. So, right,
No.
you're number 4. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Number 3 for me was also a game that was early in this year.
Early in 2016.
I want to say the actual game was released in January. I don't remember when I got it. I might have gotten it right away, but I remember playing it uh, a lot.
You
it's called The Witness.
Yeah, you did get it. I'm pretty sure you got it right away or
And
within a month of it coming out.
yeah, I might have. It's called The Witness. It's a game by Jonathan Blow, who is the creator of why is the name escaping me? Braid, creator of Braid. Um, it is a it is also a puzzle game. It is a first-person puzzle game, whereas Braid was like an action platformer puzzle game. It was also a puzzle game. The Witness is also a game kind of without fail states. So there's nothing that like kills you and cuts to black and makes you restart anything. It's a game that is kind of hard to describe. Basically, you wake up on an island and you don't know what's going on. There's really no background, no backstory, no narration, nothing given to you. And you start to walk around and explore. And you start to encounter these puzzles that they're basically like dot matrices that you can create lines between different dots. And they're of all different configurations. But what happens is you start solving puzzles and it starts unlocking more puzzles and it starts the puzzles start to introduce mechanics. And the mechanics are the game creates a vocabulary that is incredibly interesting, that if you didn't play the game from the beginning, like if you were just to sit down and like do a random puzzle in the middle of this game, you'd have no idea what was going on. So the game has this logical way of introducing new things to you and teaching you. Like the point of the game is to be taught by the game how to progress with these puzzles and do more complicated puzzles. With like the vocabulary that the game creates around each puzzle. But then it really starts to bend the rules of how these puzzles are done, because instead of just keeping the rules of the puzzles on the actual dot matrix boards themselves, the game starts to incorporate the environment around the puzzles. So the environment of the island into the puzzles. And when you first start to get involved with that, and when you first understand what's happening and how like this rock formation in the distance is the key to solving this puzzle, it is this like mind-blowing eureka-like experience. And that just continues. And I had more of those in this game than I've ever had in any game that I've ever played before. Even Braid, which made me feel that way sometimes too. But I have more of these individual experiences with The Witness than I've ever had before. The game just feels so masterfully crafted. And it just does this one specific thing, but it does it so unbelievably well. And it plays with so many different variations on this one theme that it is a beautiful thing, top to bottom. And I want to, I would, if there was a game where I could forget that I had ever played it and go back and play it again, it would be this game. Because
Wow.
eventually I want to play this game again, but it needs to be a period of time that's long enough so that I can forget enough about the game, because the discovery of the stuff in this game is one of the most satisfying feelings of any game that I've ever played.
Braid was great. We both reviewed Braid on our old podcast.
Oh yeah.
Unqualified game elements. That's high praise.
Oh, it's so good. And none of you guys have played it. And it's the kind of game where it's a game I want to talk to somebody about, but I don't know anybody who's played it. So that's frustrating for me. One of you jerks needs to get it and play it, because it is really legitimately awesome.
Well, it has retained its value because it came out close to a year ago or over a year ago, and I have it on my wish list, and I've not seen any significant sales where I have a huge discount. So, and I'm very cheap, and
so Jonathan
I don't have that much
Blow,
time to play games.
Jonathan Blow has publicly said before that like he is not really into discounting games. So it's not surprising that you haven't really seen it on sale because generally he doesn't discount games.
Yeah. And I'm cheap. So, next time I have a Steam gift card or I sell some of my Steam trading cards or something, or I have some extra money in my Steam wallet, I might pick that up.
It's so good. It is so good. It is good.
And I believe you.
It is good in a way that no other game on either of our list is good.
Wow. All right, then. You sure you don't want to have sex with it, John?
It's still not my game of the year.
How many hours?
22, and I did complete the game. I did not complete everything in the game.
Okay. Cool. Is there a secret ending?
It's not really a secret ending, but there's optional puzzles. There's optional stuff to do. There's sound puzzles. They do he uses everything. It's really cool.
That's cool. Cool. All right. Well, there's your number 3. My number 3, yet again, I have significantly less to say about, but I had to put it on my list. Are you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go?
Nope, just Pokemon Go.
So OG Pokemon Go.
OG Pokemon Go. I'm actually serious about this too, by the way. I think.
Okay, so let's start by saying it's not so much a game, right?
It is a game. It's a game.
Okay.
It's totally a game. It's a game that.
Because I feel like I watched people play it and it didn't seem like much of a game. And I'm not discounting it, and I'm not discounting it from your list, but I'm saying that it didn't feel like there was a lot of there wasn't a lot of player agency.
Would you consider Farmville a game or Tiny Tower?
I would say Tiny Tower more than Farmville.
Okay, right. So Tiny Tower, you cultivate
because there's decisions to be made because you determine what gets put down into your tower.
Right. But you cultivate resources by letting time pass or occasionally by paying money. And in Pokemon Go, you cultivate things by walking and getting steps and moving on your GPS. It just, the zeitgeist that's surrounded Pokemon Go, I don't think can or
That's
should
a stupid
be
word. I've never liked that word. I've never used that word.
You literally have used that on every episode we've ever recorded.
No, I've used decoupage on every episode that we've ever recorded.
That's what you've used. So, but I mean, I was in Madrid for a couple weeks over the summer, and 2 or 3 days after I landed there, Pokemon Go was released in Spain. And there were literally thousands of people and their families just walking around playing Pokemon Go together or with friends or whatever. There was a monument where people set a bunch of Pokemon lures in a park, and there were hundreds of people just sitting around there talking and enjoying their day and playing Pokemon Go. Like,
I think that's the bigger story about Pokemon Go. I'm not trying to steal your thunder here, but I think that the bigger story around Pokemon Go is that I think it was the first alternate reality game that brought in, it was the first game that kind of brought in non-gamers to play an alternate reality game where stuff
definitely
exists in the real world on your phone.
Yeah. I think it used augmented reality is the term you're looking for.
Yes.
It utilized augmented reality, not necessarily better than any other game, but using a license and a hook better than any other game. And you might remember Nintendo's stock soared after this game came out, but then it kind of dropped because investors realized Niantic released this game. It wasn't even a Nintendo game, but at the same time, you have to look at it and realize the value of the Pokemon intellectual property. I mean, this is the highest grossing game on the App Store, and it's free. And the number of people playing it. I mean, it was number one in downloads for months and months and continues to be popular. And there is still a thriving sub community, despite the fact that many initial features that were promised or alluded to weren't there. Many considered it kind of an unfinished game. It was deeply flawed in certain ways, but at the same time, at its core, it accomplished exactly what it needed to do. I mean, you talk about the success of augmented reality and proving it as a concept, which it absolutely has done.
Right.
And I think about when I go on Reddit and I see a post from a guy that says, as a fat guy, I'm really proud of this. And he's got a screenshot of getting the 100 kilometers walked badge in Pokemon Go, because it is getting people up and outside. It's like cured people of depression. I've seen pictures of people in public talking to each other about Pokemon Go, like across social, economic, racial boundaries, people you wouldn't normally see necessarily talking to each other. And I just think it was awesome. I think it was cool. It's, you know, when I got back to Chicago, like if my girlfriend was like, oh, let's go for a walk somewhere, I would say, cool. All right. And if for some reason that's like the last thing in the world I felt like doing, I could at least pull out my phone and have this like kind of alternate activity. If I wanted to do it, there's just so many situations where it worked. And it wasn't the most quote unquote fun game per se, because I never really got to the level where I'm taking gyms and doing all this cool stuff. But the collection aspect, the fact that there were Uber drivers offering and Craigslist ads offering Pokemon safaris where they would drive you around the city so you could catch Pokemon at rare locations. When this game came out, it created this entire economy and world and changed people's behaviors in real life. And
I did see some interesting things where like coffee shops, like single owner coffee shops would drop lures all day outside of their coffee shop to get people to come in and buy coffee. So like people would just like literally drop lures outside of their place of business.
Yeah, in Madrid, I saw a chalkboard sign on the sidewalk that said, "We have Pokemon here," in Spanish. So it's, and now Starbucks has some kind of partnership with them, I think, was announced. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I've actually, even on Yelp, there is now a category under restaurants and things like that saying, is there a Pokestop here?
Huh.
Not even kidding. That's built into Yelp's infrastructure.
So, the excitement around it has definitely died down. You don't hear people talking about it nearly as much anymore. But it was making primetime news, real news. I mean, it was a pretty big thing for about a month.
Yeah, and I doubt it's on many people's top video games of the year list, but as a mobile game that did so much, I think that it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, you just liked finally having people that you could talk to about something, even if it was fleeting and they no longer exist to you anymore.
It's true. Anyway, that's my number 3. Your turn for number 2.
My number 2 is a game I haven't really even had a chance to talk about yet, but we can talk about its implications kind of at the end of the show. But I started playing World of Warcraft Legion, and yeah, this is my number 2. So World of Warcraft came out with a new expansion in September. It was either September or October. There was a bunch of buzz about how it was one of the best expansions that they've ever released. That doesn't, with the disappointment that was the last expansion, and I've played every expansion but one of them. This is like the 6th, and the last one was abysmal. Like, it was very, very bad. Hearing people say that it was one of the best ever was kind of exciting, because I've talked about it on this show before, but I have some very, very fond memories of World of Warcraft. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pay for a month. I'm going to jump back in, see what it's all about. It is as cool as all of the buzz suggests. They have taken some aspects from Diablo and they have put it into World of Warcraft. There are a lot of World of Warcraft players that are not happy about that. There are a lot of casual players that are totally cool with that. So me as a now casual player approaching the game, I'm I found it's really cool. There is more to do in this expansion than I think I've ever seen before. So like when I log on, I am now presented with like 20 different things I can do, which it hasn't been that way maybe ever. So that's cool.
Wow.
It's cool. I mean, and they've set it up, they've structured it in a way so that no matter which one of those 20 activities that you choose to do, you are progressing your character in a meaningful way. It could be a slow progression, but it is still a progression just because of the way that the systems they have in there are. So that being said, I don't know if I'm going to play it anymore. Because, mostly because, the inability to unplug from a game is still a big issue. So the inability to pause something, to put something down and walk away and then come back to it, as a parent and as a husband, is a difficult thing.
Yeah.
So unless I am playing this game in the morning and only the morning, it would not work for me. And the problem is that for me, it's a personal problem. It's not a problem with World of Warcraft. It's a problem with Jonathan Martin. I cannot regulate myself to like not play this game at night. So it turns into an issue. It turns into the only game that I play, which isn't a problem. But if I end up having time to play a game in the nighttime, it can affect my personal life outside of the game at nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't have the self-regulation to not play it at night.
Makes
if
sense.
if I'm playing it. So rather than do that, I think the smarter thing is to say, you are a good thing. You are maybe not a good thing for Jonathan, and walk away from it. But it's
Makes
really
sense.
but it's really cool. It's really cool. And if younger me had World of Warcraft Legion, I would be freaking pumped because it's got some really cool stuff in there.
Good stuff. I've
Yeah.
not played World of Warcraft, so I have nothing to add to that.
You got really far in it. You got to like level 10.
I did not get to level 10. I played like 3 days of the demo and realized I didn't like it at all. Yet for some reason got hooked on another MMO later, which I'll talk about later. Hey, I screwed up my entire list.
Awesome.
So Lara Croft Go
Wait, do we
and
have
Final
to start
Fantasy.
from the beginning? Hang on. Do we have to scrap the episode?
So I mean, the games I actually said that were my top games were actually my bottom games. So we have to start over.
I don't even know what that means. I think you really did just screw me up. So the list gets flipped on its head?
Yeah. No, it didn't. Lara Croft Go and Final Fantasy 15 were both honorable mentions. Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds is my number 5. Pokemon Go was number 4. I previously got a number off. So my next one is number 3.
You know that this changes everything.
I know. Pokemon Go is not in my number 3. My number 3 is the next game I'm going to talk about. So can you handle this?
I think so.
All right. My number 3, and then I'm going to do my number 2 because your game of the year is next. So now I have to do 2 in a row.
Okay, I will let you do 2 in a row.
All right, they'll be short. So number 3 is Civilization 6. Sid Meier's Civilization 6, if you're trying to find it in your Steam library. And I have played 63 hours of this game. Sid Meier's Civilization 5 has been a game of the year for the last like 2 straight years. I think an expansion of the game was one of my top games last year. The Civilization series always very good. This is my number 3 because it's just really, really fun. I have not given it a full review, and I won't go deep into it right now, but I will do a full review on this podcast, hopefully with one of our friends who is a big time Civ player. 1 or 2 of our friends actually are really big Civ players. And this game in the series is notable for introducing lots of new gameplay elements. I won't get into them all. The reason it's number 3 and not higher on my list is because it had some issues at launch. They did release a patch almost immediately that addressed a lot of them, and that was really cool. But there are a couple civilizations that are still pretty broken. I'm guessing there were probably somewhat broken civilizations in previous iterations of the series.
Oh, there were broken civilizations in 5. It was ridiculous.
See, but I wasn't good at 5 or as good.
Okay.
Whereas in this game, one of the pre-order bonuses was you could immediately play as the Aztecs, and they were horribly broken. So I beat the game on deity with the Aztecs. That's the hardest difficulty. I am not that good at civilization. I should not have been able to beat it on deity.
No, you certainly shouldn't have.
No, definitely not. And my main issue really is the fact that there's no co-op multiplayer at launch for some reason, which is very disappointing because that affects the replay value. And that's why it's not higher, because you can only play so many solo games of Civ until you are like, okay, let's play with a friend. And then you team up, and I like the social aspect of it from time to time. But, you know, I will say that when I got the game, I played 5 or 6 full games in the first month or so that it came out before I kind of got not burned out, but kind of done with it. And normally with Civilization series, I'll play maybe a 30 or 40 hour game, and then I'm kind of done for like a month or two, maybe a couple shorter games, but that's about it. But this one kept in there. So I had enough of it for now. I will definitely go back to this game. It is excellent. Overall, I really enjoy the improvements with the game. I don't think that it addressed some of the fundamental problems with this series, specifically that I feel like almost every game includes some sort of military action against someone else. You're going to get attacked in every game, and you're going to have to balance your military. I think there's ways that they could address that to make it a little less warmongery and have you focus a little bit more on strategy of your city building, like a SimCity kind of a thing, which isn't addressed. And I also hate science victories. I think science victory is dumb. I can be winning in every aspect of the game and be 3 times point score higher than every other Civ, and suddenly someone builds a spaceship and they win.
Right.
I think
that means that you didn't win, though.
It's dumb.
They won.
It's dumb.
That means that you lost.
I don't like that. That's stupid. It's very stupid.
Maybe you just need to get better at science.
Because there's no way to prevent it. And if I'm focusing on anything but science and someone declares...
So what I'm hearing here is there's a science victory, there's a culture victory, there's a diplomatic victory, and a war victory. You've basically just told me that you don't like the war victory and you don't like the science victory. So I'm beginning to think that you don't really like Civ, that or you're not very good at it.
I prefer to win the game, though.
Okay.
So...
Okay.
You know.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not explaining myself well.
I want to play. Yeah. Well, it's every episode of this show. I want to play Civ 6. I will say we're really different in this. I love co-op stuff almost always. Like if I'm going to play a board game, I almost always default to wanting to play a co-op board game. But for some reason, Civ to me is not a co-op game. I want Civ to be me building up a civilization. Like I like to play against other humans playing Civ, but play against them. I don't have a desire to play that game co-op for some reason. I don't know what it is.
I think it's because I like playing co-op with our friend Will or our friend Max, and they're both.
Is it because they carry you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically,
no, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
That's pretty much it. And I will say, aside from gameplay, minor quirks, which are just dumb Cody things. My main problems are I still think the Civ 3 soundtrack is the best one, maybe 4, but the soundtrack didn't do that much for me this time. And however, I love the fact that they added endings. So in Civ, you used to get to the end of the game. You've been playing for 30 or 40 hours. You've been doing a zillion turns. And then just a pop-up window comes and it goes, okay, you won. And it's just really abrupt and dumb. This game plays a cutscene, so you get like a little video at the end with a little narration over it, and that's kind of cool. So it feels like an ending instead of just this, oh, you're done, anti-climax. I like that a lot, and I like a lot of other stylistic choices. So again, it's my number 3. Anyway, I can get to my number 2 now. My number 2 game, and this was actually one of my games of the year last year. It might have been my game of the year, but my number 2 game for 2016 is Metal Gear Solid 5. And I will.
You're saying that was the game of the year last year?
I think it was my game of the year last year, or one of them, and it's my number 2 runner-up for game of the year for 2016. And it's because there's such a ridiculous amount of replay value. I 100%ed this game, not only getting every achievement, but also getting 100% completion in the game. That took me about 230 hours. I am now 263 hours of playtime into Metal Gear Solid 5.
Wow.
The replay value is ridiculous. There is always more to do, and you're kind of always playing multiplayer. And I'll explain what that means. A central part of the game is this forward operating base. These forward operating bases you can build. This is where you expand your mother base, basically, to be able to accommodate more soldiers. Those soldiers each have specializations that can improve something. So your research or development soldiers, the more bases you have, the more of them you can recruit. The higher your overall research, your R&D level goes, the more advanced weapons you can create. Your base development platform, the more base development staff you have, the more resources you can get, and the more of certain other types of items you can develop. And there's 6 different prongs to this in total. So there's a medical team, there's a combat team, etc. And doing this takes a lot of time. And it takes a lot of real-time hours, and you have to procure a lot of these items and be strategic about the way you do it. And at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, someone on Steam or PS4 or Xbox One can infiltrate your platform and try to invade your base.
Now, why would somebody do that?
Because they can capture your resources, and it raises their multiplayer rank and their espionage rank, and it's just generally very, very good for them. Especially if you're competitive multiplayer. If you're the kind of person that says, "Oh, I want to have a high ranking in this game," that's the way to do it. And so, for that reason, my base could be being attacked right now, honestly. And what
are we doing here?
I know, right? So you can sign up for insurance for your base with real world money, which is a little ridiculous. In case they capture a bunch of your guys, you can kind of have insurance so they're not really captured. And they've created this whole kind of economy, but it's this constant meta game, meta multiplayer that is always happening. So I turn on the game still once or twice a week and just check on my base, make sure all my guys are still there. I deploy some of my troops on remote combat missions, which take place in real time. So it'll say 48-hour dispatch. So then 3 or 4 days later, 2 or 3, 4 days later, I log on again. They're back. They've gotten me a bunch of resources. I check my inventory, see if I can develop any new weapons, and then I send them back on combat missions again. So it becomes kind of a passive, like a more a Farmville kind of game where you're just kind of passively sending people out, come back a few days later and collecting whatever you've harvested. But then with those resources, sometimes I log on and I glance at other forward operating bases in my queue and I say, oh, I'm going to attack this guy. And I just run and do an infiltration mission, which are always extremely exciting because if you're captured or attacked or noticed, like if anyone on this base notices you, it opens a wormhole and that player can retaliate against you. So if you log on, John, and I infiltrated your base, but your people saw me, you'll get a notification that says, oh, Cody attacked you, and you can select my base and retaliate it against it at any time. So the stakes are always really high because if they retaliate against
that player's online,
even if they're not on, anytime. So and you're available to infiltrate them for like a week or something, or 2 weeks or something.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a really big thing. You can also have other FOBs backs. So I have just contracted myself out to some other players so I can retaliate against their infiltrators. So if I infiltrate someone and they see me, maybe they've got like 14 people backing their base. So any of those players can infiltrate me in direct retaliation. So it's exciting. It's cool. All the weapons and items you're upgrading throughout the game with all these extra resources you're collecting, you're able to use in the forward operating base missions. And it's just constantly growing. Plus, they're always adding achievements in the game that give you rewards like extra staff members that you can do while playing the missions. And now that I've got such ridiculously high level equipment, I can redo any of these missions with basically super equipment. I can make myself completely invisible or have like a level 8 rocket launcher when the game usually stops at 4 or 5. And I can just tear through and destroy everything, which is an awesome throwback to the good old days of video games where you used to have Game Genie and cheat codes and you used to be able to just turn on a game, obliterate everything for fun with your ultra powers and just kind of wreak havoc. So if I need to blow off some steam, I'll go on and just like blow up 12 tanks with something, capture a bunch of enemies, and then complete a mission. So it's just extremely satisfying in every way. It is the game that keeps on giving, and I'm actually planning on going back and playing Metal Gear Solid 5, the not the Phantom Pain, but the prequel to it, which I can't remember.
Ground Zeroes.
Ground Zeroes, yeah, Ground Zeroes, and getting 100% in that game because it's such a smooth play style. It's seamless. It's just absolutely an amazing game.
Yeah, it's a game I have gone back and forth about wanting to buy it because I have no experience with the Metal Gear Solid franchise. So, and it's just so crazy. Like the story in them are just so crazy. And I just kind of want to see the rest of it before I kind of want to see the where it started, I guess.
If you want to experience the Metal Gear Solid series, play this game last because this game is the play control. The controls are so perfect. It'll be really hard to go back to the old games. You know, if you just kind of want to play a really fun game, you're not sure you'll ever go back to the first 4, play it because you don't need to know any of the storyline. There's virtually no benefit to knowing any background about any of the characters.
Sure.
Like virtually none. So don't worry about storyline. If you've never played a Metal Gear, you want a really fun game from the last couple of years, pick up Metal Gear Solid 5. That's my runner-up.
You know, I'm looking at this. I don't think our number 1 games should really surprise anybody if they follow the show at all. So
give them 5 seconds to guess.
1.
I loved Dead Air.
Don't know. I don't know what happens after that one. After 1, I don't know what comes after that.
2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, time.
So my game of the year is Doom, and I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about it because it was one of the few games that we got to do an absolute full gamer on. It was just about a month ago. I basically gushed about the game for 45 minutes. But the thing I will say is that as a person who generally does not like first-person shooters pretty much at all, it may have been the best first-person shooter I've ever played. So that being said, I will 100% be going back to that game. I'll be playing it on a higher difficulty. It feels better than any shooter I've ever played, I think. Any first-person shooter I've ever played. It's just wonderful. So if you can get your hands on Doom, which you can get it for a steal now.
Yeah, I've seen it on sale a bunch.
Yeah, you can get it for $20 most days of the week if you just do some research and figure out where it's on sale for $20
on Steam.
It is 1,000% worth $20. It after playing it, I can safely tell you that you wouldn't feel bad paying $60 for it. Really, it is just phenomenal. So yeah, awesome. Go play Doom. And the craziest thing is the game has no right to be as good as it is because it's a Doom rebranding. I mean, it's Doom. It's like the first video game that ever existed, right? It's the game that invented first-person shooters. Like Doom,
yes, it preceded Pong by 14 years.
Doom,
fun fact.
Doom was the game that invented first-person shooters, and like, we're 25 years or something out from that. It's crazy. Like, it's crazy that the game, everybody wrote off this game. before this game came out. Not to mention Bethesda made the decision not to send out I don't know if you know anything about the history of the game, but Bethesda made a decision not to send out review copies of the game to anybody. And
I did know that.
And
that's usually a terrible sign.
It's the same thing as not screening a movie for critics. Generally in like the video game sphere. Usually it means, guess what? The game's not that great. We know it's not that great. We kind of don't want you to tear it apart before it goes on sale because we want to sell as many copies as we can. But Doom just turned out to be amazing. All the signs pointed that it was going to be bad, and it was awesome.
Cool, awesome, yeah, definitely agree.
Go play Doom.
AC from our sister show Game Life Balance Australia also reviewed this game. I actually may or may not have bought it for him as a parent warming gift. What is that? What is a man shower? Do you get showered? Did you get a shower before you had a baby?
A man shower?
Yeah.
That sounds like a sexy place to be, is what it sounds like to me.
Actually, didn't I buy you The Witness? Isn't that what I got you for your... Maybe that's how you got it.
No, because Max wasn't born this year. I'm pretty sure I bought The Witness.
I bought you a game. This is forever ago.
You have definitely bought me a game before.
Well, no, but I bought you one specifically for your baby warming gift. Or it was like right after you had your kid or something, and I was like, "Oh,
you probably did," but it wouldn't have been this year because Max is, almost 3.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't The Witness. I don't remember what it was. Doesn't matter. But anyway, ACE reviewed Doom. Also gave a great review. Check out GameLifeBalanceAustralia.com for their words on that. Cool.
I'm good. That's my game of the year, and
cool.
You should all play it. That game is awesome.
Cool. So my game of the year, also, as you mentioned, not surprising, is Final Fantasy XIV. Somewhat extensively, John and I will give it some kind of full review at some point in 2017, but I had only tried World of Warcraft in terms of massively multiplayer or online RPGs. World of Warcraft, I played a few days and got really bored and just didn't care for it. For some reason, I got hooked on Final Fantasy XIV. I have played... Steam says I've played 232 hours, but I think that counts when you have the launcher open, so I don't know if that's true, but around 200 hours, let's say. And it's just... The writing is phenomenal. It is written like a Game of Thrones book. You are fully immersed in this world. Playing with other people is amazing. You can do I had so much fun just on the single player stuff without even being in a party. And then 100 some hours into it, I'm well, earlier, but then you're thrown into these multiplayer parties and you get to run dungeons, and it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Beautiful game, great graphics, community. And it's a Final Fantasy game. So everything about it is amazing. The music is amazing. I listen to the soundtrack all the time. This is probably the best Final Fantasy game since the PlayStation era. In fact, it definitely is. I can give it hands down. It is definitely the best Final Fantasy game since at least 7. So play it.
Yeah, it is a very well done MMO wrapped in a Final Fantasy theme, is kind of the feeling that I have about it. And it, as you can see, it didn't make my list for the year, and it could have because I played a lot of it. But it doesn't, it would be different if I hadn't started with World of Warcraft, but World of Warcraft was my first MMO love. Right. And so that's what I find myself drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
And Final Fantasy XIV is going to be your first MMO kind of love, and you'll probably always fall back to that as the MMO that you play. There's a very good chance that's what's going to happen. Yeah, and it's very good. It is a very good game.
Yeah, I mean, and you have a lot of experience with them, so you would, you have something to compare it to.
I thought for sure you were going to say Final Fantasy 13 too. I really thought that you were going to do it. But
that can't be my game of the year 7 years in a row.
It's a missed opportunity. So
I had to stop at 6. I will just transition briefly into kind of what I learned about myself as an adult gamer in 2016 with this game. And that is that I realized I cannot play more than one game at once. I have logged into I have not logged into Final Fantasy 14 since I got Final Fantasy 15. I have an active subscription with 14, and the idea was play a little of this and a little of that, but maybe it's the type of gamer I am, but with my time constraints, if I've only got 4 to 8 hours of game time a week, I'm going to need to spend it immersing in one game. So I learned about myself. I will probably need to cut my 14 subscription in the next week and just suspend it until I'm done with 15.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the disadvantages of a subscription-based model for a game. It just is, because if you ever cool on that game for any amount of time and you fall off of it and go to a different game for a while, you feel kind of like you're wasting your money by paying into that subscription. So yeah, that is an inherent flaw with that particular type of model. And there aren't many games that do a subscription model anymore because it's just not viable for most games.
I have also learned about myself that I really, really appreciate games that let you turn down sound effects, because this actually applies to 14 and 15. The sword slashing and explosions are very loud. And while the music in these games is beautiful, my girlfriend does not as much appreciate the explosions and screaming and grunting and sword sounds. So when I'm able to isolate those, and
you're gonna grunt when you swing a sword.
Yeah, exactly.
You're swinging a sword.
When I'm able to isolate and reduce those, but leave on the very pretty music, it's been very beneficial. So that's a thing that I learned that you might want to try if you have a significant other or anyone else in your family or life who does not like abrasive screaming and exploding sounds.
I think the biggest thing that I learned this year is that I think I'm finally willing to admit that the ship has sailed for me on MMOs.
Completely?
Yeah, I think so. I think they are too great a temptation to me. And whatever it is in my personality type, they are too great a temptation for me to play them in a way that is definitely considered like unhealthy. And that's not okay. So I think it's a huge disappointment because I love them, but I recognize that they're probably not the best. So that was a big thing, because I kind of felt that with Final Fantasy 14 earlier in the year as well. And I also learned that for me, I'm like totally okay now with not finishing games that I start. I'm totally cool with that. And I know that is like something that is very hard for you to do. And I was kind of starting to feel this way last year as well. But like, when I have had enough of a game, I'm cool just walking away and being like, I got a lot out of that game for whatever I paid for it. And maybe I didn't see it through to the end, but I find it better to walk away from the game at a point where I am starting to cool, like I'm starting to cool on my enjoyment of it, like Darkest Dungeon. That game would have just started frustrated me and leaving a bad taste in my mouth every time I walked away from it if I tried to actually complete it. But walking away from it when I did, I look back on it and I'm like, that was a really cool game for what I did. And for what I got to play out of it. So I think I'm really cool with that. So like having as many games as I do in my Steam library, yeah, I'm not going to complete them all ever, but I'll probably play most of them, even if it's for like 15, 20 minutes just to see what it's all about. And if any of those grab me, then I can continue to play them further. But I'm cool even if they don't.
Yeah, makes sense. I also conducted a poll on Twitter, very scientific poll, of what video games people are most excited about in 2017. I was only able to have 4 options. So my options were Horizon Zero Dawn, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Resident Evil 7, and Mass Effect Andromeda. And coming in at number 4 was Horizon Zero Dawn, which surprised me because I'm quite excited about that game.
It was a hard pull for me to answer. It really was.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad. It got 57 votes, so not a huge amount, but anyway, 11% said Horizon Zero Dawn. Coming in second was Resident Evil 7 at 19%. I guess for horror genre fans, that's going to be a huge thing because I apparently they're going back to the horror, straight horror.
Well, not only are they going back to straight horror, but they also are. It's the first time it's ever been in first person, which is kind of a big deal.
Oh, interesting.
It's never been in first person before, and it's going to be in first person.
Interesting.
So that's kind of a big deal because so not only are they saying, yeah, we're going to return to form and kind of go back to classic, but we're also going to do this completely new thing we've never done before.
Very cool. And I've never played a Resident Evil game, but I've watched people play them, and that's always fun. Mm-hmm. So I enjoy that. And then in second was at 24% was Mass Effect Andromeda, which I didn't even know they were making a new Mass Effect until I made this poll. Are you excited about that?
Yes. Because Mass Effect 2 is one of the best games ever made.
But 3 isn't.
3 is not. 3 is fine. 3 is good.
Is this a continuation of the series?
It is. It's like a reboot. Like they're starting a new timeline. The first 3 games are Shepard's story, and then they're moving on to a new hero now.
Oh, all right. So there could be crossover stuff. Will your old files transfer?
I want to say that it takes place in the future. So I think that all of the old guard is dead. There'll probably be some cameos, I would think. I would probably find a way to do that.
Okay, cool. And then at 46% of the votes, with no surprise to anyone, is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which, I mean...
I think that your results are skewed to Nintendo fans, personally, because that wasn't the top of my list. In fact, that's probably number 4 for me on that list, actually. So, I'm serious.
Right, but I don't know if it's skewed to Nintendo fans or just skewed to people. I mean, the Legend of Zelda series is pretty popular, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
And I get that the other ones are too, but this is Zelda we're talking about, and what they have shown so far does look quite phenomenal, I think.
It looks really interesting.
So,
it's definitely going to be a Zelda game that I buy, which I didn't buy Skyward Sword because I didn't think that looked very interesting.
Right. And I'm excited as hell about the Switch. I mean, work was really slow today because it's, the beginning of the year and there's not that much to do. If I could have busted out Final Fantasy 15 on my lunch break for an hour, that would have been phenomenal. But of course I couldn't because I can't bring my PS4 to work and hook it up to it. Well, I could, but I'm not going to.
You should.
So I probably should. There's a quick look at, and I'm the most excited about the Switch probably. What I'm most excited about is the fact that there aren't that many big games coming out in the next 6 months, because I would like to kind of breathe a little bit with my gaming, because when I get into a game, I really hit it hard. And
Resident Evil 7 comes out in like a month.
I'm not going to play that though.
Right, but that's a big deal for me. No, and then Horizon Zero Dawn comes out. Horizon Zero Dawn comes out in February, right?
Now, Horizon Zero Dawn does come out in February, but I might not get it right away because I might wait for the reviews, because after No Man's Sky...
Because you don't like female leads in your games. No, it's okay. I understand.
Yeah.
You don't think women should be the main characters of games.
Which is why my character in Final Fantasy 14 is a female Miqote. Actually, I'm pretty excited about the new Final Fantasy 14 expansion. I'm not going to lie. What the hell is it called? Stormblood? Sworn Blood?
I don't know.
Stormblood.
Probably not going to play it.
It's called Stormblood or Winter Blood. I'll play it. And here's one other thing I learned in 2016. If you are starting a new MMO and your friend is starting a new MMO and you have another friend who's been playing the MMO for 15 years, join the server of the guy who's been playing for 15 years, because he's probably going to keep playing.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Because I joined your server thinking,
now you've got to pay for a server transfer.
And now I have to pay for, and I'm going to pay for a server transfer. Because
nobody. So unless one of you chuckleheads starts to keep a similar schedule to the one that I am on, nobody should really play around my schedule for playing games, because nobody's going to wake up at 4 a.m. to play a game with me. Nobody's going to do that.
Well, but even then, an MMO is a subscription model. So if you ever get burned out on the game or tired of it or want to take a break from it, you're gone. And if someone's been a subscriber for literally since its inception, which Brad has, and he was on our podcast reviewing the game, he's very likely going to be playing forever-ish.
Yeah.
And so he'll be around. And no, I can't raid with him right now because I'm not that level, but I'll get there. Once I hit 60, like, cool, let's do this.
Sure.
So, yeah, that was but it would have been nice to play with you. And it's funny, I did actually get accepted into your guild after like 2 weeks of having applied, or your free company, but I'll just join his. So anyway, looking forward to a wonderful 2017. I don't think anything could possibly go wrong in this country or anywhere else in the world.
No, it's going to be great.
It's going to be huge. And also this year, listener, you should check out the Gonna Geek Network. We're a member of the Gonna Geek Podcast Network, and there's geeky shows on it like All Things Good and Nerdy, which is a show that I've been on before. Great show, huge show. On episode 241, they review Star Wars Rogue One. The ATGN crew is joined by some friends from the Gonna Geek Network to do a deep dive, spoiler-filled review on Star Wars Rogue One. This is actually their last show of 2016 I'm promoting, but check it out. But it has a special surprise, and friend of the show Keith created a custom holiday intro that you cannot miss. It's probably dirty.
I assume you saw
They're
Rogue
pretty
One?
Dirty. I saw it. I went with Wolfen.
Did you like it?
Did she like it?
Did you like it?
Did I like it? Yeah, it was fine. Did you like it?
I really liked it, like a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I think it's probably my favorite Star Wars movie after Empire Strikes Back.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Really, really.
Why? What's so good about it?
I found the lack of mysticism Jedi stuff refreshing. Like, I really enjoyed the battles in it. I really actually liked the characters, which surprised me. But I know there's a huge discussion about the fact that the characters, people feel they're underdeveloped. I thought that everybody kind of knew how the story was going to end, and I mean you kind of knew what you were signing up for, I think, with that group of characters, knowing that New Hope starts immediately following it.
Yeah, I did like that New Hope starts immediately following it. I did not anticipate that. And I didn't know the fate of all the characters. I didn't know what would happen to them. I had an idea, and I'm glad that they took what I think was a brave direction for the series, the way that they resolved it. And I will say, I think that the final battle sequence had more weight and import to it, and the stakes felt really high on Star Wars. You just felt it. It built it up really well. I thought the middle kind of slumped a bit, and I thought that the start was really erratic. The first 10 minutes is kind of incomprehensible, just jumps around a lot, and then it kind of balances, and it's a good start. I thought it lulled a bit in the middle, but it did. I mean, the last half hour is unbelievable. So I would say it's not as good as Mad Max Fury Road, but no, it's definitely better than Mad Max Fury Road. Not as good as Easy Rider.
What is Easy Rider?
Doesn't matter. Hey, also on the Gonna Geek Network, the Doom Ninja podcast with one of our favorite people, Ryan Dombrowski. Check out his game Suburban Scavengers on Steam Greenlight. And on that other platform, the indie game platform, do you know what that's called? It's like something...
Itch.io?
Is it itch.io?
Yeah, Itch.io.
It's Itch.io. Okay, itch.io. Anyway,
Itch.io.
Episode 22, gameplay footage. This week on Doom Ninja Podcast, Nate discusses Devil Daggers, a fast-paced first-person shooter where survival is difficult. And Nate also gives his take on fantasy RPG Dragon Soul. Ryan rounds out the episode with some talk about the awesome multiplayer dungeon crawler Crawl and a brief holiday studio update. I've played Crawl. I played it with our friend Ryan of Daryl TV. I played Crawl with him really drunk one night. We split a bottle of whiskey pretty much, and I don't remember it much. I was terrible at it, but I was drunk. So
it was fun.
There's that. So there's that. Anyway, I'll let you wrap up the program. Oh, this on the GonnaGeekNetwork.com or GonnaGeek.com is where you can check out all those wonderful podcasts, including GameLifeBalance.us. I mean, Game Life Balance U.S. Right.
Wait,
Yeah.
what? And as always, I'll tell you, thank you for listening to the Game Life Balance US podcast, the American edition of the Game Life Balance podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode, and leave us a review if you really want to make our day. You can find us on Gonna Geek Network at GonnaGeek.com or on the official podcast network of Chicago's WGN Radio at WGNplus.com. Learn more about Game Life Balance, including contact information and links to our sister show in Australia at GameLifeBalance.us. If this coming year here is anywhere close to as good as last year for video games for me, man, I'd be really pleased because it was a really good year for video games last year.
It won't be. Hey, please tell your at least one friend who likes video games about our podcast. We would love to have one new listener this year. It would at least double our subscriber base. Perhaps even triple it. I'm not even sure how.
I don't think that math. No, that math doesn't make sense.
Doesn't matter.
That's not math.
So just tell one friend, and yeah, and then maybe we'll stop begging you to tell people.
It doesn't math.
Doesn't matter.